This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
Okay, you gotta look. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. That's exactly what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're gonna feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin, and tell it like it is all around the world. And today we have a very interesting subject. I hope you agree. Obviously, I think that because I chose it. Illegal immigrants. We come back to this quite often. But what is it about the illegal immigrant situation that means the government just can't get people out of the country? Here's the context. Keir Starmer, he is still the Prime Minister, rather to my surprise, but there you go. He made a deal with his big friend, best pal, if you use a Peter Mandelson line, Emmanuel Macron, the Premier, who's also in pretty deep trouble in France. And the deal was this: one in, one out. So for every migrant we send back to France, they send a legal asylum seeker to Britain. So if 100 people get sent back, France sends us 100. Now, you might already see there's a mathematical problem with that. We never get rid of anyone because the numbers stay the same. And I'm not so concerned if a chap from Eritrea is here, if he's just going to be replaced by somebody from Albania, for example. But we'll talk about that with my guest in a moment. But here's the thing. Even at the first hurdle, so far, we've apparently seen, at the time of putting this program out, one person sent out under the new scheme. One, not 10,000, not 1,000, not even 10, apparently one. It might have increased, of course, by the time you're watching this. Perhaps, as you watch in the archive, I'll look like the fool because it will turn out that the Labour Party actually did deliver on this. But I'm sceptical. We will, of course, find out. But here's my question. Why did we have to do a deal with France at all? If people come into this country illegally, no ifs, no buts, the first thing they've done when they get here is break the law. Why can't we just get rid of them? That's the legal question I'm putting to my guest today. And it's none other than a managing director, I believe, of a law firm, no less than that, if that's correct. And that is Peter Maughan. Are you really a managing director of a law firm?
I have to confess that I am, yes, Lembit.
All these years, I didn't know you'd reached that heady height, but it does stand to reason because you've been at the game now, what, 40 years? How many years have you been a lawyer?
47 years.
That's quite going. Are you not bored yet?
No, and I say that I'm in practice and people wonder why I have to practice so long, but I'll get there eventually.
Well, I'm very pleased that you're practicing with us and think of this as a test then. Now, here's the question. First of all, the big picture. We've got this one in, one out deal where if 100,000 people come in here legally and we send them back, then we have to get another 100,000 back. So let's start with the mathematics. Have I missed something here, Peter? Or if we're just taking a like-for-like number, this isn't going to cut net migration by a single person, is it?
No, obviously not. But what it is intended to do, I think, but I'm not Keir Starmer, is to remove the number of illegal immigrants and replace them with legal asylum seekers so that they can be processed through the asylum seeking process. And we'll end up with the same number of people here, but they won't be illegally here. That's the only difference.
Okay, but look, once again, correct me if I'm wrong. People don't walk around in central London and mainly urban areas and say, well, I was really angry when these 4,000 people who have nothing to do with our local community came here. But now that they're legal asylum seekers, everything's fine. I don't think that's how people think.
You're absolutely right, Lembit. They don't think like that at all. But I mean, I'm looking at it from the legal perspective, and that's what the government are trying to do. So we'll have the same number of people here, but they'll be legally here and not illegally. That's the only difference.
All right. So when they say one in, one out, there's an irony, because what it means is this: the gangs who are sending all these people to the United Kingdom now determine the numbers. If these human traffickers, and that's what they are, send 100,000 people into Britain, and we get rid of 100,000 people, then we have to get a different 100,000 back. So Starmer's no longer in charge of how many people come here. The traffickers are, because if they got 1 million people across the channel, we'd have to get 1 million asylum seekers. Otherwise, presumably, we can't send them back to France.
Yes, that's right. But on the other hand, Keir Starmer was never in charge of that process. It's always been driven by the smugglers, the people smugglers. That hasn't changed. It's still them who are dictating how many come, because they are, in essence, they are criminals, of course, but they are going to continue sending people and taking money from those people to be sent. But the fact is that if they are then caught, those people, they will be sent back, and we'll get legal immigrants instead of illegal immigrants. But of course, initially, the driving force is the smugglers, and they will decide how many people they can pack onto these dangerous small boats and bring over to England.
I just have to say, this whole thing sounds ridiculous. It just sounds like it's been put together by unintelligent people who didn't figure out that if you take exactly the same number of legal asylum seekers back in as you sent out, then you're not cutting the numbers. And that's what's annoying people. It's actually that the numbers, as well as the fact that we don't know who you are, these folks who come in. All right, well, that's a bit of an aside in a way, but quite an important one. So here's my question for you. What is it that occurred in a legal sense that made it so difficult for the government to start sending people back?
Nothing. There's no legal reason why they couldn't always have sent those people back. The reason why they don't just put them on larger boats and send them and dump them back in France or whatever is a political reason, not a legal reason. People that come into our country illegally can be sent back. We normally go through due process. Therefore, the courts would say, you shouldn't be here, you are going back. But the fact is that we can send them back. There's nobody can compel their admission here if they haven't gone through all the proper legal channels. So they can be sent back. But the problem is, if we just put them all into bigger boats, take them over to France and dump them on the beaches, then the Prime Minister's good friend, Mr. Macron, is not going to be very happy and won't be his good friend for very long. But yeah, it's all political. It's politics and not law.
Yeah, Emmanuel Macron and his wife are pretty busy on some other matters. Apparently, they're in the process of providing scientific evidence to prove that Mrs. Macron is a woman. Why bother? Okay. They obviously, methinks thou doth protest too much, Mrs. Macron, I would say, but that's a matter for them. Meanwhile, it's this Eritrean man who won the block on removal to France under the one in, one out deal. That's what it says here. And apparently, the reason given is that he's scared of being in modern day slavery. After all the time he's here, he didn't mention it once, but suddenly he came up with this idea. Plausible?
It isn't, is it? It's implausible. But having said that, what we could see is that he gets back to France and somebody else comes in his place. But then he could apply for asylum. If he's really, truly scared of what's going to await him when he gets back to Eritrea, he could apply legally for asylum. So we could end up with him back anyway.
But no, why would he come here? At the end of the day, he went through a safe country, Peter. Here's my problem with all of this, right? He went through a damn safe country, France. Okay, it's got, anyone who goes to Paris now knows that the culture there's changed beyond all recognition because of migration into the city. He could have stayed in France, even probably in a friendly Eritrean community, and not been any danger. So what he's actually done to get here is to break the law. It's actually a simple rule. You just have to look at the Home Office instructions on this, and the Home Office would be perfectly entitled to say, whatever the case you've got, you've blown it out of the water by coming here instead of arguing your case in France or one of the other countries you came through.
Yeah, but as it is now, he's being sent back, and I think he probably would have an argument that he's entitled to ask for asylum here, although we know that he came through safe countries to get here originally, but he's not here on his original trip. He's here on a new trip because he's been sent back to France. As you say, he could stay in France and he'd be perfectly safe, but I bet he raises that argument. He'd be mad if he didn't.
I just out of interest, have you done this kind of work, this kind of conveyancing of migrants, or has this not occurred to you on your watch?
No, it's not happened to me. I'm not a criminal lawyer, and this is crime. Not nowadays. I used to be, but I'm not a criminal lawyer these days. And all I can do is watch from afar, like the rest of us, and see the ridiculous goings on. I've got to say that I know you might not like me to say this, but I have a huge amount of sympathy with the Prime Minister because he's in an impossible situation, really, for the reasons that we've been outlining, just as his predecessor was. And unless we could put up enormously high railings with machine gun emplacements on them, we're always going to have these people or other people coming over here and saying we want to be here. Britain's a great place to live. They know that, and that's why they want to be here. You can earn more money here. You can get more for your pound in the shops. That's why they want to be here. It's got sweet nothing, in truth, to do with feeling safe or not feeling safe in many cases. Not in all cases, but in many cases, it's to do with being economically advantaged by being here. And the Prime Minister is going to face that. And these people, and we've seen it time and time again, they will do anything to get here and to try and integrate into our society and not be sent back.
Yeah, well, one of the problems is that they don't tend to integrate very much. That's one of the things a lot of people say. They make no effort at all. But that's maybe a slightly different subject. Incidentally, I also have sympathy with authentic migrants. My parents had to leave Estonia. They would have been killed if they'd stayed behind under the Soviet system. And Britain very kindly brought their parents, my grandparents, into this country and let them reside. But we integrated. When you go to certain parts of Britain, there's no attempt at integration whatever. I think that's one of the reasons there's a problem. But that's another story. I really want to stay on the legal side of it. Let's have a look at how this one-in, one-out thing's been reported by the state-sponsored station.
Migrants crossing the channel on small boats have been detained under a new agreement between the UK and France. The migrants have been taken to immigration removal centres with a view to being deported back to France under the so-called one-in, one-out reciprocal agreement with the French authorities. Here's our reporter, Simon Jones.
The crossings have continued, but with a difference. For the first time under the new returns deal, some of those picked up in the channel by the border force and brought to Dover yesterday are now being held and face being sent back to France. The government won't say how many. It claims that information could be exploited by the smuggling gangs. Critics believe it's because the numbers are very small.
The first migrants who've arrived on the small boats are now in detention. We will then swiftly make the referrals to France, and that process will now start to be able to return people to France. It's the beginning of the pilot, and it will build as well over time. But we're also clear that France is a safe country, so we will robustly defend against any legal challenge that people try, and we do expect for people to start being returned in a matter of weeks.
Well, there we go. I mean, that's all very promising, and
it
makes it sound like it's all sorted out. That was, of course, when Yvette Cooper was still the Home Secretary. She's now the Foreign Secretary, still has an involvement in that. She says it with all this confidence, but I think the reason that they didn't share the numbers is because they're tiny. If, let's say, 1,000 get repatriated out of every 40,000 that come over, that's 1 in 40 chance of being caught. But if it's only 100 or say 400, then you got 99% chance or better of staying. And by the way, that's the official figures. You speak to anyone who lives on the South Coast, and they'll tell you they see a whole bunch of undocumented, uncounted people running up that beach. It's just not 30,000. It's thousands and thousands more than that, Peter.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right, Lembit. I mean, the problem is, where's the remedy? Because, as I say, unless you could physically stop people from landing on our shores, then it would be an impossible task. But unless you can physically stop them from landing, they're going to continue to land. They want to be here. They want to be here above all else. Many of them, but probably most of them, in fact, would be refused entry if they tried in the appropriate way to get legal entry. But they want to be here, and they will do anything and spend any amount of money to get here. I mean, those people that are coming up the beaches, running up the beaches, as you said, they have nothing really, but they are spending thousands of pounds with criminals to get themselves here. But there is no solution except if you could put a physical barrier there, and you can't. So we're going to be faced with this anyway. It's those few people that the government catches, that immigration authorities catch and send back, that we're going to see being sent back. But the numbers are not going to be overwhelming because, as you rightly say, there are not going to be that many who are going to be caught, and they will be sent back. But while the half a dozen, figuratively speaking, are coming up the beaches and being arrested, there are 6,000 who are spread around other beaches, sneaking in, as they have been all along, and just causing the same problems on our immigration numbers as there were before. Because there is no solution. There is no magic wand. And that's why I've sympathized with the government, because it's an impossible task. You ask King Canute about telling the waves to stop coming ashore, and he couldn't. He would have loved to have done, and he tried to do, but he couldn't. And, King Starmer is in exactly the same place. He could say to the immigrants, stop, but it doesn't work.
There's one thing I have to say in defense of King Canute. He did it to prove to his admiring followers that he wasn't all-powerful. He's always been ridiculed for this. It annoys me because he said, look, I'm going to sit here and try and stop the tide, and I won't. When the tide came in, he went, see? And what's his reward? He's been ridiculed just like you did, Peter. He needs a good lawyer. That's reputational damage. Before we go further on, I know about that, I can tell you. Before we go any further, if you're watching this live, this advert won't make any relevance to you if you're watching it in the archive. But there's a big event on Saturday. That's Saturday, the 20th of September, 2025. And it's a meeting, the world's first Prime Directive Convention. And this is about what happens when we meet aliens. Yes, aliens, as in not the ones Peter and I have been talking about, but aliens from somewhere else. It might just be microbes. It's an event by a group called Ascardia. which is taking a really serious look at our role in the universe. If you've missed the event, you're watching this in the archive, enjoy this anyway. It's a beautifully put together little advert. But if you are watching it live, why not tune in to Asgardia, the Space Nation? You'll find it really easily, Asgardia, the Space Nation, because they're talking about how we really interact with aliens if and when we meet them. Woo! Heady stuff. Now, if those aliens come, we've got a really big problem if we're not ready. Because if they've got the presence of mind and the tech to get here, we don't have a chance. We just have to hope they're friendly and they don't consider us to be fast food. What do you think?
I think that's probably right. We have to be careful that they don't decide that we shouldn't be here and deport us on the one in, one out principle. We could find ourselves on a planet that we really don't want to be on. But
having said that, if they can breathe our air, we can breathe theirs. And maybe they don't have tax. Maybe they don't have David Lammy. I mean, there's all kinds of attractions.
Yeah, could be right. Could be right. And maybe they don't even have King Canute.
And well, they may not have tides. I bet you they would have. They bet you they'd have a satellite. And no doubt Angela Rayner would be at the front of the queue buying some of that real estate before it gets too expensive. Who knows? I know. All right. Sorry, Angela. You suffered enough, some would say. Right, let's get back to what we were talking about. We haven't got very long, but it seems to me the story so far, you're more sympathetic than many people to the plight of these migrants. And I'm not surprised. I mean, the suffering that some of these people have endured, it's heartbreaking, really. Yeah, especially when you see women with dead children, injured children. They've done nothing. They're not a threat to anyone. And maybe I do think in quiet times that we have to recognize we've caused a lot of the migrant crisis. But that's a different story in a sense. They should still obey the rule of law, I would say. And more than that, I don't believe for a moment that all of them have got this tragic experience. I think that a lot of them are basically just chancing it. Economic migrants, you can't blame them for that. But what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Is it applying the law or something else?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think we have to do something like Keir Starmer's deal with France, but on a more sweeping basis. And also, we've got to be able to be more forceful, more robust. And when people arrive that shouldn't be here, let's see your papers. Should you be here? No. Okay, turn around, get back on another boat and just go. But the problem is, what's France going to say when we start to dump thousands of these people on their shores? They're going to be in the same position as us. I think it's insoluble. Making an attempt with some of these provisions is good, but it's not a solution that's going to be easily worked. We're stuck with this, and I think we're going to be stuck with it forever.
Well, maybe. I mean, they're putting them onto these Air France planes. So I don't even know why we're doing that. Why aren't we taking them back by boat? I don't really get that, but maybe there's a reason for it. But we can't get into that now. At least we won't get the answer to that now. You've put an interesting point forward, though, there. A challenge about what could be done instead of what's being done. Well, Donald Trump's got a solution to that. He's building a great big wall, and I think he's going to carry on building it. And apparently, they're now going to paint it black. Do you know why?
No.
Here's the answer.
Efforts to fortify the southern border are to be extended to the next drastic stage. And now the wall between the United States and Mexico is to be painted black. Now, the announcement was made by the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem during a visit to the portion of the wall in New Mexico. And according to the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, the entire wall along the U.S.-Mexico border is now going to be painted in black color to make it hotter and to deter illegal immigrants, as it will be harder for people to climb over this wall. While she has given no indication about the cost of the project nor a timeline for when it might be completed, she highlighted that this idea is implemented specifically at the request of Donald Trump. Now, Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law, providing $165 billion to Department of Homeland Security, with $46.5 billion allocated for a new border wall and efforts to deport undocumented migrants. In his first term, Trump had always said that it would Mexico that would pay for this wall, for which he's now allocated money under his One Big Beautiful Bill.
So there's the solution. Why don't we just build a big wall and paint it black? It won't make much difference here with our sunlight and our weather. But there, you see, he actually has achieved it. He claims that no one's coming into the country. I'm sure that's not completely true, but he seems to have absolutely decimated the illegal migration figures, and that's the whole thing's a lie, but I don't think he's lying that much.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't put broken glass on the top. But I mean,
I think it might have spikes.
Yeah, probably has, yeah. But I don't think we can compare our problem with his, because it's just, we've got the chance.
His is worse. He hasn't got 20 miles of ocean, almost 40 kilometers of ocean. He's just got a bit of land. Our situation is easier. We've got a natural moat.
Yep, of course we have. But unfortunately, we've also got natural boats that people can jump into and come across that moat. And that's what they're doing. And I despair, because there is no solution. I wish I had a solution. I would sell it to the government and make a fortune. But there is no solution. And, I'm governed by the rule of law, and I'm an officer of the court. I have to stick to the law. There are lots of ways we could do this, but they wouldn't be sanctioned by the court. Gangsters always manage to get their own way, but they don't argue the legal points. They argue how to put a bullet in the gun. And other than that kind of remedy, there is no solution. I'm sorry, but there is no solution.
Quite a pessimistic prognosis there from a managing director of a law firm. Is there no reason to be cheerful at all?
Well, if we manage to establish a two-way transportation device with the people who will be at the conference on Saturday that has been advertised here for Asgardia, then we can stick them all on spaceships and send them out to a colony, which nobody else has to go to. But other than that, there's no actual easy solution, I'm afraid. I could lie and say, of course, but it's not true. We're stuck with this problem at the moment until somebody comes up with a good idea. But one in, one out is not going to solve anything. It's only going to change the nature of those people who are in our country.
I do note, though, if that planet is great, people would want to go there. Maybe it's just one great big Amalfi Coast like in Italy. And if you haven't been there, watch The Talented Mr. Ripley. It really does look as good as it does in the film. If you were Home Secretary, what would you do?
Resign.
Okay, you defeatist. You Liberal Democrats are all the same. There must be something. Surely surely if we simply said, not the one in, one out, one in, one out, one comes in, they go out, that would stop it. You just basically pay a few million, maybe tens of millions of pounds to patrol with drones and people the coast. And when they come in, you get them all. You detain them all. You send them all back. Where are you from, Eritrea? Okay. Enjoy your charter flight to Eritrea.
Yeah, we could do that. But tell you what, if you send them back to France, you're going to end up with a problem with France.
Maybe we've got that already.
Well,
but who knows? Maybe Keir Starmer's solution is to pretty much rejoin the European Union. I know that's what the Lib Dems want. The irony, of course, is if we join and then go into something called Schengen, we don't even have a border. We can't stop anybody. I don't think they've thought that through. Thanks very much indeed for your cheerful abandonment of hope. And just the very final question. You don't think that there's a solution. Does that mean that you think Britain will just get full until it's so unattractive a place to live that people stop coming?
That's a somewhat fanciful, I think, Lembit. But the fact is that we've got to keep looking for solutions. There's nothing that I've got on the top of my head at the moment, but we've got to keep looking for solutions because we are not a bottomless residence. You cannot put unlimited numbers of people in here and expect them to be accommodated. And so I think for the time being, I'm going to resign as Home Secretary, but from the back benches, I will still be arguing for anything that looks like a viable solution because we've got to try and stop it. You can't give up, although it's very difficult.
Maybe Britain needs reform. A conversation for another time. Thank you so much. That's Peter Maughan with me, Lembit Öpik. Have your say. Go to X and please subscribe to YouTube, Unprecedented TV. It helps us a huge amount. And thanks for the increasing numbers. And why not come along if you're watching this live on the Friday? Why not come along on the 20th of September for the discussion about real aliens and what do we do when they come here? Probably we won't put them into hotels because they've already got somewhere to live. Thanks very much to you for watching. Thanks to Peter Maughan. I'm Lembit Öpik, and this was Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.